What's going on, everyone? Happy Wednesday to everyone. Hopefully, everyone is doing well and having a great day so far. It is time now for the Wednesday edition of the Climate Update for Wednesday, February 7th, 2024. If you are new to my channel, this is where we do the daily climate update, talking about weather stories around the world, weather records, and of course, our main focus is the weather forecast for the United States. If you like this type of content, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel down below. We have to start off today with the storm in California. While it is winding down at this time, there's still some showers in Northern California. I'll show you that in a moment. We do have a problem. The death toll has now risen to 9 people, and unfortunately, there are now 70,000 households who have lost power from this storm. So this really was an impressive storm. Let's take a look at the Weather Prediction Center 3-day observed precipitation totals, where there were some record-breaking rainfall amounts that fell in Southern California. Northern California, you were not spared. You also got some really heavy rainfall. You can see here, widespread 2 to 4 inches of rainfall fell in Northern California, with localized amounts of up to 5 inches. And then Southern California, look at this here in this orange and yellow, widespread 5+ inch amounts. There were several localized areas that went over 10 to 12+ inches of rainfall over the past several days. That is really impressive to think about. Taking a look at the latest satellite picture here, you can see the majority of the eastern portion of the United States is quiet at this time. But when we take a look at the western portion of the U.S., you can see there are still clouds, and we do have this active flow, southwest flow, that is setting up from Texas on up through to the Great Lakes. Taking a look at the western U.S., you can see here, there's another wave of energy coming into California. This is going to be a much quicker moving piece to the puzzle, and it's not going to be hanging around all that long. You can see there are some showers today in the northern plains with a warm front, some showers back across Texas. And take a look at California. You can see here, there is this last piece of energy that's coming through. Yet another system. It is quickly moving to the east and southeast at this time, and it should continue to do so. It's not going to be a major weather maker. The biggest storm has already passed. Taking a look at the National Hazards Map, you can see that on the west coast there are still winter weather advisories and winter storm warnings. In the mountains, Arizona mountains, you're going to see a ton of snowfall. Taking a look now at the latest precipitation totals for the next 1 through 7 days, and you can see here a bit quieter on the west coast, but look in the southeast U.S. You can see in the southeast U.S. We are expecting there to be some heavier precipitation. There could be a storm system that develops and tries to transfer a low somewhere off the mid-Atlantic coast, and then maybe become an interior snow event for portions of New England going into early next week. It's something we will have to watch. Taking a look now at the latest excessive rainfall forecast, you can see just a marginal risk in California today and a marginal risk in portions of Arizona, and tomorrow just a tiny marginal risk in Arizona. Let's take a look at the Storm Prediction Center. While there's nothing going on today, northern Illinois, eastern Iowa, and portions of southern Wisconsin tomorrow do have a marginal risk of severe weather. There could be an isolated tornado, a few damaging wind gusts, and maybe even an isolated risk of hail. It's also possible this may get upgraded to a slight risk. We'll have to see. There is some simulations like the HER model, 18Z HER model. It's actually a little bit impressive. Let's take a look at that. Here's the HER model. You can see here we're starting off here. That west coast system, it does dive to the east and southeast, and it exits the picture pretty quickly. Just a couple showers left behind tomorrow. But look what happens in the northern plains and the Great Lakes. I'm going to show you this to you. In the upper Midwest, here's the north central region. Look at this. A broken up squall line gets going, even some thunderstorm activity for Chicago. Yes, it is possible for tomorrow that there could be somewhat of a wind threat. I think that's going to be the greatest risk for tomorrow. We'll have to watch how this plays out. Right now, it's a marginal risk. It could possibly get upgraded to a slight risk. All right, taking a look at this, there's something I want to show you on the NAM. Let's switch it to the 18Z NAM run since that just came in. These are temperatures over the next several days, starting off here with tonight and tomorrow. Look at this. You're going to have an expansive area of warm air ahead of that system. You can see Texas, 70s, even 60s up into the central plains. That is really warm weather for this time of year. Then as I advance this into Friday, Look at this. Another day with 70s in Texas, Louisiana, maybe even flirting near 70s in portions of Arkansas. But you can see here, look to the northeast of that. You can see there is a warm frontal boundary, and it's showing up quite well. Places north of the mid-Atlantic into Pennsylvania, it's going to be dramatically different because that is going to limit how warm it gets, and cloud cover is also going to become a factor. Let's advance this into Saturday and take a look at this. You can see here that warm front clearly shows itself in Pennsylvania from about southeast of State College, Pennsylvania, down through Allentown, on up into New England. There's a lot of questions as to where that warm front's going to set up. I know the local meteorologists in the Philadelphia area are saying it's going to be near record, which Philadelphia's record on Saturday would be 65 degrees. It's going to be very close. This could easily set up more south. Just given the time of the year, past history, I would suspect this warm front maybe stops right along the Mason-Dixon line. But just wanted to bring that to your attention because you may be hearing, oh, it's going to be a big warm up on Saturday. Stop and think about it. It is February, and more times than not, these warm fronts do not get as far north as these models suggest at this time of year. Anywhere south of the warm front, yeah, Saturday, well above average. Look at this, 60s even up to D.C. Further south, like Atlanta, Georgia, you're looking at mid-60s on Saturdays as well. However, there's two sides to every weather pattern, and this one is going to flip going into next week. We've been talking about this. Another weather pattern is going to set up. Real quickly, here's a look at the European. You can see on the 12Z European, look at this. Those 60s don't get very far north at all. The European is 50s, even down in the DC metro area. Alrighty, switching this, let's take a look at the GFS now. Let's take a look at the GFS National, and I want to show you a storm system for next week. This will be the start of things changing in the east. You can see as we head into Sunday, you can see an area of low pressure goes across the Great Lakes Saturday evening, and this kind of sets up a train track behind it. There'll be a boundary that sets up. See, that energy leaves, and then on Sunday there's another piece of energy that goes across the Carolinas. But look at this piece of energy right here. This is showing up on all of the models. This area of low pressure that cuts up into the Tennessee and Ohio Valley. Somewhere along the East Coast, that is going to transfer. There is a problem, though. This system is going to be moving relatively quick, which means it's not going to have a lot of time to organize. And if it were to organize, it would have to do so quickly. Well, the models are suggesting it could do that rather quickly. You can see as we head into Monday evening, there's the area of low pressure right over the Ohio Valley. You can see some thunderstorm activity possible down around the Carolinas or some heavier rainfall. And watch what happens here. That starts to form into a secondary low. You can see some heavy rain moves across Pennsylvania first thing Tuesday morning. But look at northern Pennsylvania, north of Interstate 80, up in New York State. Look at that. That is really heavy snowfall. And this storm just quickly blossoms into a Miller B. You see 982 millibar low right over Long Island. That would favor interior snow in the portions of New England. Let's go to the Canadian at the exact same time. Now the Canadian is a little bit warmer. You can see places along Connecticut, Massachusetts. It is mainly rain for you. But again, this storm system really blossoms. Let's backtrack this. You can see secondary forms right near New York City, 989 millibars. 6 hours later, boom, down to 971 millibars. So where this tracks, how fast this develops is key. But right now, if you are north and west of Boston, say in Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine, I think you got a pretty good shot at getting a decent snowstorm on Tuesday. We're probably talking about starting early Tuesday and going into Tuesday evening. And take a look at this. It actually goes down to 966 millibars and pounds Maine. Down East Maine, you get really heavy snowfall with this. Let's take a look at the European now and see what that does with this storm. Remember, this is on all models, and it is showing up on the ensembles as well. Here we go. Here comes our piece of energy for next week. You can see, this tracks just a little bit more southeast. The primary low goes over West Virginia, and then the secondary low starts to form a little bit more southeast, right over DC area. But despite that, the track from there does stay a bit more inland. You can see upstate New York on European. You do get significant snowfall, but look what happens here. The low ends up going almost over Boston at this point. So northern Vermont, northern New Hampshire, northern Maine, yes, you will get significant snows with this track, but places along the I-95 corridor in the northeast will not see significant snow. And quite frankly, I think that is what is going to happen in the end result. This pattern doesn't really favor that. It's what happens afterwards. This is going to set the change. Right now we're seeing above average temperatures. Behind us, the pattern is going to change, and it is going to get much colder. Take a look here. That's some really cold air that moves into New England. You're talking below average temperatures, and look at this. As I advance this even further, a Clipper system moves in to the picture later on next week. That's something we'll have to watch, because it is possible when you get a northwest to southeast flow like this, a Clipper system would pop up. Then look in the southeast. Yes, this big system starts popping up, and it's also showing up on ensembles. I think as we head into the second half of this month, there is the threat of a bigger storm system because the cold air is going to be available. And look at this. You have a strong area of high pressure to the north of that. The cold air is going to be available. Let's go back to the GFS real quickly. You will see here the colder weather that is going to come into play in the second half of this month. Take a look here. We're starting to come into next week now. There comes that one system that passes. But look behind here. Look up here in the northern plains. You're starting to see colder air, and some of that starts to dive into the northeast. You're seeing lows that are much colder. You're seeing highs that are much colder. And look as we head into the following weekend. Look at this. Lows down into the single digits in New England. And you start to see below zero temperatures up in the northern plains. Yes, this is something we're going to watch as the cold air is going to be available. It's just a question. Does the system eject from the south and come up to the northeast? I would lean towards a system does at this point because the southern jet has been very active. We just saw what happens in California where they've had all that rain. Well, that same southern jet is going to be at play down here in the south. If a system comes up and links up with all this cold air, you're definitely talking the threat of wintry weather in the east. Let's advance this a little further. Look at this. Now we're around February 19th. This is very cold air anywhere east of the Rocky Mountains. A big difference from how we have started this month across much of the country. Let's take a look now at the CPC data. You can see here, temperature outlook, 6 to 10 days. It is going to be below average. Small strip here of above average across the Midwest and on the West Coast, but for the most part, places will trend towards below average. Now you're seeing for precipitation, below average precipitation in the east. A lot of that's going to be dependent on whether or not something ejects out of the Gulf. If something does eject, then this is obviously way wrong. And you're going to see the same thing on the 8 to 14 day outlook. Look at this. Below average temperatures across much of the country, just near normal in the upper Midwest, and slightly above average on the West Coast. But look at the precipitation here. You can see above average in the south. So again, they do factor in that the jet will be there. It's just a question, will something come up the coast? And if something does, this below average in the Ohio Valley, Northeast, probably would not verify. They are also seeing below average in the Pacific Northwest at this time. That could potentially end up being correct. Alrighty, we do have a Twitter account. It is Climate Data Report. Type that in, Climate Data Report, and it is at Climate Data RPT, capital RPT, as you can see here. You can follow me there. That does it for today's climate update. The key takeaway, this warmth, it's going to continue for a few more days. Then we start to transition back to winter next week, and it could linger for the rest of the month of February. And be mindful, there will be a couple snow threats, with the first one being in interior New England next week, and then another threat sometime around the 15th or the 18th for significant snows. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this update, give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more content like this, subscribe to my channel down below. Share this with anyone who would like to see it, and I will see you all again next time. Have a fantastic Wednesday evening. Thanks for watching.